AFDB, distinguished delegates, all protocols observed. My names are Moses Bayingana, acting for the Director of Infrastructure and Energy, and allow me to moderate this opening ceremony.
Intérim du département infrastructure et énergie.
Moses, please, before we go any further, the French translation is somehow mixed with the original, so the interpreters have to choose the right channels. Please ask team to fix that up. Please proceed, Moses. It seems that it's so.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Commissioner. Your Excellency, Chair, with your permission, allow me to invite the Vice President of the African Development Bank to make his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, and I hope you can hear me. I hope you can hear me. Please confirm.
Yes, Vice President, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, Chairperson of the Specialized Technical Committee on Transport, Transcontinental, and Interregional Infrastructure and Energy, the Honorable Minister from the Arab Republic of Egypt, distinguished ministers from all the African member states here present, the Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, African Union Commission, and also an alum of the African Development Bank, the CEO of Afdb, my brother, directors responsible for infrastructure from AUC, Afdb, UNECA, the regional economic communities, and other partner institutions here present, Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps present, representatives of partner international development organizations, all other protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to deliver the African Development Bank's opening remarks at this third ordinary session of the Specialized Technical Committee on Transport, Transcontinental, and Interregional Infrastructure and Energy. I would like to recognize and commend the work and efforts put into organizing this important meeting today, ably led by the African Union Commission, despite the ongoing challenges being faced due to the COVID-19 pandemic, leading us to find new ways of working. It is also in that context that we commend the AUC's leadership with support and collaboration of all key partners and stakeholders in the development of the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA-PAP2, over the past 2 years, culminating in its approval at the AU Heads of State and Government Assembly in February earlier this year, despite the challenges. Accordingly, we are proud as the African Development Bank to have been a part of that process. I would next like to touch on the importance of the Specialized Technical Committee on Transport, Transcontinental, and Interregional Infrastructure and Energy and its alignment with the AFDB's strategic priorities. We seek to address Africa's infrastructure gap by striving to increase financing for sustainable infrastructure investment and development in Africa, thereby improving the lives and socio-economic well-being of Africa's people, while acting as an important engine for African regional integration and with the rest of the world, and finally promoting a shared global economic development. At the African Development Bank, we believe that ownership, national level support, and endorsement of broader continental policy orientations, strategies, and programs are essential for success and for the achievement of Africa's economic development and integration objectives. Therefore, we fully support the objectives of this STC on transport, transcontinental, and interregional infrastructure and energy as the ministerial decision-making organ of the African Union for the transport, energy, and tourism sectors, as well as overall infrastructure development matters. its decisions provides us as your development bank with a solid framework for the support we provide to the priority programs and projects in infrastructure and energy. For the AFDB, the key priorities in the transport and energy sectors covered by the STC agenda align very well with the bank's strategic priorities, which you all know we refer to as the high fives. And that is why we are actively financing a number of the programs and projects, including PIDA, fulfilling the objectives of this specialized technical committee. Next, I would like to discuss AFDB's support for AU priority programs. As you are aware, the AFDB is a strong supporter of the PIDA program, having financed and provided technical leadership and partnership in its phase 1 PIDA PAP1 development, but also supporting its accompanying initiatives such as capacity building, private sector engagement, and financing a number of the projects in PIDA PAP. You may also be aware, Honorable Chairman, that the AFDB has provided an estimated total financing in excess of $7 billion for PIDA projects over the past 10 years. And this is even further estimated at $9 billion if we look at it over the past 15 years to the continent's priority infrastructure programs and projects supported under the NEPAD infrastructure program, making the AFDB the lead financier with more than 50% of the total financing secured. Our commitment is unwavering and will continue. So this demonstrates a strong commitment to the ideals and objectives of the PIDA program and the continental integration agenda as a whole. We are therefore delighted to continue our active association with the program, focusing our support on the recently approved PIDA PAP2, supporting project preparation through the NEPAD infrastructure project preparation facility, and other instruments, as well as financing the eventual physical projects. As you may be aware, the AFDB has supported the development of a financing strategy for PIDA PAP2 and is also currently developing a new project to support the implementation of PIDA PAP2. In the aviation sector as well, the AFDB is supporting the implementation of the single African air transport market, which we otherwise refer to as SATAM, through a project providing institutional strengthening to the African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, to provide other stakeholders, mainly the regional economic commissions, states, and airlines, with the awareness and skills needed to establish the SATAM in a sustainable manner, and thereby supporting the sustainable development of air transport in Africa through a long-term legal and operational framework for SATAM that will provide enhanced safety, security, health, and environmental protection. In land transport, of the AFDB's commitment of more than $10 billion to infrastructure in the last 6 years, the bulk has gone to the transport sector. Specific financing to support regional integration increased marginally from the equivalent of $1.1 billion in 2018 to $1.2 billion in 2019, with investments in regional infrastructure accounting for $700 million, mostly supporting key transport corridors, promoting intra-African trade and the energy pools, the energy power pools, and thereby underpinning the continental free trade area. As for our support in the energy sector, my Ndugu, VP Kevin Kariuki from the African Development Bank will talk to that later today when he speaks during the launching of the Africa Single Electricity Market. In conclusion, honorable ministers, infrastructure development is known for improving the lives and socio-economic well-being of people, acting as an important engine for regional integration and with the rest of the world, and finally promoting a shared global development. Therefore, we must collectively work to reduce Africa's infrastructure gap by striving to increase both project development resources and eventual financing for the sustainable infrastructure investments and development on the continent. The African Development Bank's expectation, therefore, is that this meeting will go well and come up with clear recommendations and policy directions to inform strategies and programs development for Africa's transcontinental and interregional infrastructure, energy, and tourism development. Let me conclude my remarks by reaffirming the commitment of the African Development Bank Group to continue playing a lead role in Africa's development and transformation, and in supporting transcontinental and interregional infrastructure, projects and programs, but also focusing on assisting member countries to build back better and boldly post-COVID-19, supporting the necessary reforms to attract more investment, and through the development and deployment of innovative financing mechanisms, including stronger support for PPPs with the new PPP strategic framework that we are developing at the African Development Bank, as well as the use of partial risk guarantees and partial credit guarantees for credit enhancement instruments. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a successful meeting.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that address. Your Excellency, Chair, with your permission, allow me now to invite the CEO of AUDA NEPAD, if he's around. I think we had gotten an apology that he may not be with us today, but in case he managed to join, we invite him to make his address. Otherwise, we'll proceed to the next address. Chair, it's with your permission, now allow me to invite Her Excellency, the Executive Secretary of UN Economic Commission for Africa. Your Excellency.
Chair, I think the Executive Secretary is still caught up in another meeting. And the opening remarks are going to be given by the Director of the Private Sector Development and Finance Division on her behalf. Is that okay to proceed?
With the permission of the Chair, you may proceed.
The Vice President of the African Development Bank, the CEO of AUDA NEPAD, the outgoing Chair of STC, Her Excellency, AUC Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen. As we gather here today to deliberate on this very important theme, the role of infrastructure in sustainable economic recovery, resilience, jobs, industrialization, and trade, Africa is entering the third wave of COVID-19 pandemic amid an alarming shortage of funds and vaccines. South Africa remains the continent's epicenter of the pandemic, with the country's infections increasing at an alarming rate. The Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention has reported that African hospitals are overwhelmed by severe cases of COVID-19. Lusaka in Zambia, Kampala in Uganda, Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Johannesburg among the cities battling to cope with the demand for treatment, with hospitals running out of oxygen. Excellencies, for Africa to overcome this pandemic, we need to increase our efforts to achieve herd immunity. We cannot solely rely on the importation of vaccines. Just 1% of the 1.3 billion COVID-19 vaccines given globally have been administered in Africa so far. These challenges would have been avoided if a vaccine was developed in Africa. And this could be made possible with massive private and public sector investments. However, we do possess the right or sufficient infrastructure to facilitate the massive manufacturing and distribution of the vaccine? Is Africa's infrastructure capable of driving post-pandemic economic recovery strategies? There's connection between COVID-19 recovery efforts and seamless infrastructure development. Excellencies, this pandemic has underscored the need for Africa to improve the quality and coverage of its infrastructure. Without a solid infrastructure base, we would not increase our vaccines manufacturing capacity and would not distribute them equitably across and within the regions. We have now seen how vital infrastructure is to health, water, and sanitation. A recent WHO report in 2020 estimated that 1 in 10 people, or about 785 million, still lack essential services, including the 144 million who drink untreated surface water, and most are in Africa. Energy is critical for empowering medical services, sterilization of equipment, diagnostics, cold storage for vaccines and medication, information technology, and the lights to deliver continuous health care services. Yet it has been reported that nearly 60% of all healthcare facilities in Africa have no access to electricity. Of those that do, only 34% of the hospitals and 28% of the health clinics have reliable 24-hour access to electricity. Moving forward, we need better infrastructure to address current challenges and also to reset our economies. First and foremost, we need reliable electricity to power Africa's manufacturing. Current efforts to increase electricity access need to be doubled. Also, our focus should be more on productive use of electricity. We need better and more efficient logistics for the continent to connect rural and urban centers and to connect countries and move goods, people, and services seamlessly and cost effectively. There's also been an increase in internet traffic, fiber optics, competition on cloud because of the pandemic, as more and more people are forced to work and meet virtually. Even in a post-pandemic world, this new normal will persist. Therefore, we need to accelerate our effort to improve our existing networks, liberalize our broadband to make it affordable, and invest more in cloud technology. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude with imperatives that are worth focusing on. First, we need to ensure the successful delivery of projects in the second priority action plan of the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA-PAP 2. The process leading to selecting projects in the action plan was rigorous, participatory, and due diligence was applied to boost success of this plan. We learned essential lessons in delivering projects in priority action plan of PIDA and cannot afford similar mistakes. Member states need to support these projects actively and adopt them in their infrastructure plans. Second, increasing investments in infrastructure remains critical. COVID-19 pandemic has led to the contraction of Africa's GDP by as much as 2.1%. Moreover, fiscal deficits have doubled, mainly because of the decline in oil production and other resource-intensive industries. In this context, we need innovative ideas of resource mobilization and financing of infrastructure. Thirdly, we need to build resilient infrastructure from different perspectives, ranging from climate change to cyber attacks. Our infrastructure systems have to operate in an increasingly uncertain future in which we cannot predict or avoid all shocks and stresses. Therefore, it is essential for infrastructure to be prepared for the threats we can anticipate and respond to the unexpected, for it to continue to provide the essential services on which society depends. Lastly, We must continue to update our capabilities on innovation in infrastructure technologies, financing, and governance in the changing world. Therefore, structured and demand-driven capacity development programs should increase better governance of infrastructure sector, should enable Africa to devise sound and robust policies, measures and actions that will lead to a faster deployment of infrastructure assets. ECA remains committed to partner with African countries and institutions to ensure that we address these imperatives. We've showcased a few of our initiatives that support the improved deployment of sustainable infrastructure in Africa during the expert segment and specialized technical committee meeting. We call upon all member states and their institutions to support these efforts. I thank you for your attention. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Director, for that address on behalf of the Executive Secretary of UN Economic Commission for Africa. Your Excellency, Chair, through you, allow me now to invite His Excellency, the AU High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa. I thank you.
Thank you. Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, I'm delighted to be able to join you at this third STC TTI meeting. I'm going to talk about the issue of infrastructure on the continent. Africa's massive infrastructure gap is a matter that needs urgent attention. African countries lag behind in infrastructure investments and ultimately in development, which in turn has subjected our people to unacceptable poverty levels. Our ambitious Continental Free Trade Area Treaty will strengthen economies and regional cooperation, but can only be achieved if we have the requisite infrastructure in place. That is when we will be able to increase inter-African trade. PIDA has identified massive road and rail network deficits, airports and ports infrastructure deficit, ICT infrastructure deficit, and very importantly, an energy infrastructure deficit that has greatly impeded manufacturing, economic development, and human livelihood in Africa. Despite its energy production and distribution potential, Africa is in dire deficit of electricity with a total installed capacity of only 147 gigawatts today, instead of the 700 gigawatts, which is the energy production target for the year 2040. Africa's infrastructure development requires significant financing as well as strengthening of the international funding and delivery architecture. The World Bank estimates that Africa requires approximately $100 billion per year to fill the financing gap. Recent estimates from the African Development Bank puts the requirement at approximately $150 billion. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, most of you know that over the past 2 years, I have been advocating for the establishment of an infrastructure fund for Africa, that is IFA. The idea of the fund is premised on the fact that there are resources in Africa and the world that can be mobilized to support the development of Africa's infrastructure. A key factor retarding development in Africa's productive sectors has been the insufficient stock of bankable projects. especially in energy and transport. The low investment uptick in infrastructure projects is the absence of preparation and mobilization of funds. The IFA is premised on the simple principle that effective project preparation is key to alleviating the continent's infrastructure backlog. A quick glance at the 70 PIDA PAP2, that is 2021 to 2030 prioritized projects, will confirm that a majority of these projects are stuck in the project preparation stages. The main goal of the IFA is to bring these prioritized projects to market. IFA proposes innovative and strategic partnerships with institutional and private investors. It cannot be business as usual as we look ahead. We must forge technical and financial partnerships, the renowned infrastructure projects developers and engineering companies in energy, that is green and renewable, transport, and the ICT. I look forward to working with all of you, mobilizing the resources that are needed to ensure a steady supply of prioritized and investor-ready infrastructure projects, which in turn are delivered in a timely manner to meet the needs of investors and our urgent infrastructure needs. We need to move from where we've been for a long time and break this logjam so that we can be able to fast-track intra-African trade, increase intra-African trade from the current 15% to something across like 50%. That way, Africa will not need to require other markets. It will be more dependent on its own. I want to wish this meeting success, and I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the AU High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa. Your Excellency Chair, with your permission, allow me now to invite Her Excellency, the Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy. Your Excellency.
Thank you, Moses. Your Excellency Chair, it seems that Her Excellency Dr. Vera Songwe is online. Are you here now, my sister?
Yes. Sorry.
Sorry, please go ahead. Sorry, we missed you earlier. Please go ahead.
I think no. Just to say good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I think my director William already gave my remarks. But to say that this is a very important STC again, as William said, because and I see His Excellency the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, Excellencies, ministers, the Economic Commission for Africa working, of course, with you, and so I'm going to defer everything you say to you. We just finished working on the LAPSET corridor, but we're also working on PIDA. Of course, this is all around the CFTA and the work that we want to put on the CFTA. I see my sister, the Minister of Transport of Ethiopia, and you know, a big part of the transport agenda, as everybody in the ECA knows, when I talk about it, is also about women and making women to also be part of the prosperity that the transport sector delivers in terms of contracts. I see the Minister of Transport of Kenya. There's a lot that we have to learn from how we can do procurement to women and ensure that women are also part of this big business, which is procurement in the infrastructure sector. So I think the Economic Commission for Africa stands ready to work with yourself, Commissioner Amani, Auda NEPAD, of course, and all the work they're doing. I think with COVID, we've seen the tensions on cross-border transportation, working with CDC Africa as well, just to make sure that even if COVID remains with us for a while, we can continue to trade with each other. And a lot of it is going to happen through our rails, our ports, and our roads. and to ensure that also the other big agenda item that we have, of course, is we're losing many people on our roads every day. And we hope that we can also begin to fight that fight. I think with my colleague in Geneva, we're working on sort of road safety and ensuring that we don't end up on the climate change agenda with everybody's used cars on our continent and needing to clean up those cars. So also working at the global level to see whether we can put more regulation in terms of sort of the used car importation onto the continent. Today, in many of our countries, 80% of the cars on the roads are used cars. And that is not good enough for the health of our people, but also for our climate and the disposal of this car. So I think that's another agenda that we could come back to. But thank you again very much, my sister Amani, for allowing me to intervene now. I'm very sorry we had a connectivity problem. I was not in my normal office. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Always a pleasure to have you, and thank you very much for this comprehensive intervention, even though in a very short time. Mr. Chair, let me start my intervention now. Excellency Ministers, the Honorable Raila Odinga, African Union High Representative for Infrastructure Development, Excellency Dr. Ibrahim Mayati, Chief Executive Officer here represented, Excellency Dr. Vera Songwe, Executive Secretary of United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Excellency Dr. Solomon, my brother, Vice President of the African Development Bank, Excellencies, distinguished participants, representatives of continental, regional, or global partner organizations, partner institutions, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Allow me first to welcome you all to this third ordinary session of the Specialized Technical Committee on Transport, Transcontinental and Interregional Infrastructure Energy. I would like to start by recognizing the outgoing chair, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Shakir Marqabi, Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy of Egypt. His Excellency, during your mandate and tenure of this esteemed committee, you and your team have demonstrated full dedication to Pan-African causes for infrastructure development, tourism, and I'm really, really proud and happy of the great work that we have been doing under your Excellency's leadership, whether it's all the preparations and the studies regarding PIDA, the development of the actual program PIDA PAP2, the single African electricity market, also the tourism, the African tourism framework, and so many other initiatives and big projects that are essential for the development of Africa as a whole. Also, under your leadership, we have been living through a difficult time since COVID-19 erupted, and I'm really happy and proud that, again, under your leadership, we have been leading the work of the AU and the continent, on so many aspects to ensure not only the containment of the pandemic, but also to allow the continent to restart and recover soonest. The hardship or the suffering caused by COVID-19 has not subsided yet. We are still in it. However, I have high hopes thanks to the incoming chair, His Excellency, the Honorable Mohanen, is a Minister of Public Works of Kingdom Lesotho, who has been elected as incoming chair of this committee, and his esteemed bureau members, that we will be able to again lead and steer the continent towards a better recovery and sustainable development for everyone. Your Excellencies, you are aware that the African Union Agenda 2063 highlights the need to enhance regional and continental efforts for accelerated and integrated infrastructure development in Africa through high-level policy development and engagement, consensus building, promotion of regional integration, as well as mobilization of financial and technical resources to support the development of regional infrastructure projects. While the goals of Agenda 2063 are more than ever relevant, the current realities warrant a more responsive approach to infrastructure development. COVID-19 has impacted both the supply and demand sides of global value chains, seriously impacting our economies in Africa, dependent often on commodity export, tourism, services, and imports of consumables. The resulting economic recession will lead a significant or means a significant setback when it comes to poverty alleviation, gender outcomes, in a context where restricted financial capacity and fiscal space limit the scope of our governments to invest to rekindle the economies. The post-COVID-19 realities will impose disruptive changes, which also hold the potential for more digitalized and decarbonized pathways for value addition and growth, new business models to respond to market demands, and opportunities for more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable societies. So our work and going forward is and should be focused on making this crisis work for Africa and to turn it into opportunity in order to, as I said, to recover better. In terms of pressing and urgent sectors that need attention, of course, all of them are important, but I would like to maybe talk about the aviation in Africa, and I would have liked also to talk about tourism, even though, I mean, since the beginning of this year, tourism is now under the purview of my brother, Commissioner Albert Muchanga. However, they are interlinked. But aviation, as your excellencies know, and tourism are living a very serious crisis, and this comes at a time when aviation is, as we know, a driver for socio-economic development for Africa, and it supports almost a $60 billion industry and 7 million jobs. That, of course, to its a crucial role now in the fight against the pandemic, when whether it's the distribution of emergency and humanitarian supplies, including vaccines, and other supplies, you know, for landlocked countries and so on and so forth. So there have been massive losses in revenues were incurred to the entire African aviation value chain, whether it's airlines, airports, states, so on and so forth. And also, of course, linked very much to that is the issue of tourism. We all understand also the importance of mobility at a time when we have launched and operationalized the African Free Trade Area earlier this year. Cognizant of the harm that the pandemic is exerting then on or has exerted on the sector, we have been joining efforts, working very closely and seamlessly, and here I would like to also thank them and commend their work with the Africa CDC. We launched the Saving Lives, Saving Economies and Livelihoods last August in order to help our economies recover. This also in addition to leading the Africa in a multi-sectoral task force that has been established to harmonize and to put the guidelines and harmonize the guidelines for a restart and recovery of the air transport, which happened last July. However, since September 2020, travel bans and restrictions have been imposed to and by African states, preventing our citizens from entering many countries abroad and from moving freely across the continent. This goes for air transport, but also road transport. And this has raised significant issues since these measures severely impact the recovery of the African transport, and especially aviation, but also limits and impacts, our economic recovery on the continent. We understand that COVID-19 has required, member states to confront many trade-offs associated with health, economic, and social challenges when it comes to budget. But I would like to specifically talk to the issue of rollout of vaccines, available vaccines, and how this is going to help the Africa really reopen. According to the CDC, the continent may reach 20%, only 20% of the population being vaccinated. This is very far from the 60, 70% we were hoping to have, which effectively means that we will have to wait until 2024 for a full opening. That, in addition to different health requirements and health credentials by each of our member states, and I'm sure you all realize and are seeing the long queues across the borders that last sometimes 2 weeks waiting to cross because of the changes and all health requirements and health credentials. Your Excellencies, this is a very serious situation that we are living now. We have been, whether it's with our partners in the European Union, we have been advocating and talking to them about recognizing all kinds of vaccines that are approved by the WHO, recognizing also the fact that Africans may not and could not be all vaccinated at the rate desired in 2021, and also advocating and working with the CDC in order to harmonize the health requirements and health credentials and the recognition of these health credentials, both by our member states, but also across with our, with non-African partners and or countries. And also the crisis, as we have seen, has demonstrated the importance of having a single single operating, effective single African air transport market. I think this couldn't be made even more important or more obvious to all of us. As your Excellencies have heard from Her Excellency, Madam Dr. Vera Songwe, the continent is losing each year 3 to 5% of our GDP due to the high number of road accidents, which result in almost 300,000 each, what COVID has caused on the continent. And yet we have not been seeing the same mobilization across all sectors and across all countries to address the issue of road safety as we did or as we are doing for the COVID-19. WHO indicated that in Africa, the number of road traffic injuries and deaths have been increasing over the last years. This is at a time when in all other regions of the world, the road traffic injuries and deaths have been decreasing. So only in Africa, we are increasing. Africa has the highest rate of fatalities and injuries worldwide. That's 26.6 per 100,000 population, followed by Southeast Asia and other regions of the world. Since in August 2020, the UN General Assembly adopted the resolution on improving global road safety, and it sets out a target for road safety for the next 10 years and proclaims the second decade of action for road safety. It points out the situation of Africa and insists on the role of regional road safety observatories to achieve the worldwide challenge of having deaths by road accidents. As such, the case requires from all of us an urgent derogation to the ongoing moratorium towards the full establishment and implementation of the African Road Safety Observatory, And my department already received from partners a number of expressions to support this observatory here in Africa. Our meeting will also consider the African Road Safety Action Plan for the decade 2021-2030, aligned with the global decade and the African post-2020 decade strategic directions for road safety. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, after the successful launch of the African single electricity market on 3rd of June, the hard work of closing all the gaps to ensure technical and market compatibility of seamless electricity trade begins. We are grateful to our partners, especially the European Union, for the support they are providing to develop a comprehensive action plan that will help us and enable us to address these gaps. In addition, we are working on complementary programs that places great emphasis on closing the energy access gaps by 2030 by tapping into the vast renewable energy resources that Africa possesses, as well as adopting new approaches and practices like mini grids and digital solutions such as pay-as-you-go. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to conclude by calling upon all African stakeholders to ensure strong coordination of efforts to catalyze infrastructure development in Africa. There is also need to ensure that the development of infrastructure on the continent contributes to transformative and inclusive growth, including for poverty alleviation, to enable Africa to rebuild and recover better from the COVID-19 and its devastating economic impacts. I cannot end my intervention without thanking again the outgoing chair of this esteemed specialized technical committee and congratulating the incoming chair of this esteemed specialized technical committee. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Commissioner. Your Excellency Chair, allow me now to invite His Excellency, the outgoing Chair of the STC, to make his remarks. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Okay, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Minister Odinga, African Union High Representative for Infrastructure Department, incoming Chair, Honorable Mr. Monaheng, Minister of Public Works, Kingdom of Lesotho, Honorable Ministers, Her Excellency Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, African Union Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, allow me on behalf of the Government of Egypt and on my own behalf to welcome you all in the ministerial meeting of the third ordinary session of the STC Committee on Transport, Intercontinental and Inter-Regional Infrastructure and Energy. And I would like to thank the Department of Infrastructure and Energy of the African Union Commission, the honorable ministers from African countries, delegates, and all the regional organizations and economic communities and international initiatives who are participating today for the achieved work and the exerted effort on developing the infrastructure of our continent. We emphasize our keenness to achieve an effective dialogue to define a shared vision in order to achieve economic and social development among countries of the African continent, and to set clear action program in order to achieve comprehensive and sustainable development. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, development mainly depends on infrastructure, as it represents the backbone for strong economic, social, and political life activities in civilized societies. And without it, no development or prosperity for society can be achieved. The STC committee meetings provided the opportunity to present a clear image of the projects, national and regional action programs in the relevant sectors. Accordingly, it has become a platform for collective cooperation and integration among countries, including all stakeholders, the private sector and academia, to exchange knowledge, experiences, and solutions to common challenges in developing in developing the targeted sectors in the recognition of the fact that African integration is the first priority on the African continent in order to achieve the African Union's Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. The infrastructure sectors in Africa are currently suffering from the great challenges represented by the effects of COVID-19 pandemic and the severe global economic recession. There are measures that can be taken to start reviving the economy and increase the required investment. As this crisis showed us challenges, it also showed us opportunities for development and progress in various infrastructure sectors. And among these opportunities is the development of a digital infrastructure in all sectors. In addition, we should accelerate the implementation of action plan prepared by the African Union to confront the effects of the spread of COVID-19 pandemic regarding the energy sector, which was discussed and approved during the meetings of the first extraordinary session of the STC TTIIET Commission Bureau in May 2020. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, there are more than 600 million people in Africa do not have access to electricity and modern energy services. And more than 870 million families still do not use clean cooking technology so far. So the transition to green economy must be pursued by all countries and societies to supply our African brothers with modern energy services which are affordable, reliable, and available. On the other hand, our African continent includes multiple treasures of human labor, minerals, oil and gas. Africa has the largest arable area in the world, and it has countless tropical forests. But most of these treasures are not exploited yet. Therefore, we still have a great opportunity to achieve the prosperity of the African people, and that luxury can be achieved through proper planning. The long-term strategic planning of infrastructure projects for the African continent is a big step forward, and many efforts of the continent need to be enhanced, refined, and combined for an integrated vision of our continent. To build this future, the continent needs conscious youth cadres who understand the extent of the upcoming challenges and lead a project of an integrated development using effective means in spreading development thinking on the largest possible scale. We will not forget the women's role towards sustainable infrastructure, where their role is very important in the transition to green economy in our continent. The participation of the private sector in infrastructure projects in our African continent is one of the important matters that should be taken into consideration in order to set procedures and adopt legislations that motivate investors and encourage them to evolve in the implementation of infrastructure projects. And we have a successful example in this regard in Egypt, which is Bimban Solar Power Plant, the largest solar power project in the Middle East and Africa, and perhaps in the world even, located in Aswan with a total capacity of 1,465 megawatt, where the private sector participated in this project. Private sector, either local or international, has participated in this project as a result of getting a clear vision and adopting incentive measures that led to achievement of the desired goal. Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, international and regional institutions and development partners have made serious effort to achieve the sustainable development goals of our African continent. And we surely value the role of these institutions and development partners in supporting African initiatives, including the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA, which has great importance during this meeting. The second priority action plan for the Infrastructure Development Program in Africa, PIDA, PAP2, will be presented, which includes the final list of priority projects and financing strategies for the period 2021 to 2023. And the best example of our cooperation under the umbrella of the African Union is launching the African Single Electricity Market and adopting Yamoussoukro decision, and also the single African air transport market. During the previous period, many initiatives have been activated in this context, which mainly aim to expand the use of clean energy depending on renewable energies, as well as supporting the infrastructure projects and continental interconnection. And everyone should accelerate the pace of work on these initiatives and create a mechanism to follow up and achieve the desired goals in a way that guarantees their synergy for the benefit of all African countries. The global trend in using green hydrogen for energy production is a good step forward. The advancement and green transition of our African continent. Perhaps I would like to mention here actually that this is one of our main goals in Egypt, and we started one giant project on the green hydrogen in order even to transfer the green energy to ammonia or methanol and transport it or export it to Europe. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, Egypt took over the presidency of the STC TTIIET Technical Committee in April 2019. And since that date, permanent and effective coordination is always made with the African Union Commission to implement all the activities and the action plans for required work. Huge efforts have been done in this context, and many important events have been organized, such as the 5th PIDA Week in November 2019, the first extraordinary session of the STC TTIIET Committee Bureau in May 2020 to discuss the repercussions of COVID-19 pandemic, the meeting of the second regular session of the subcommittee on energy in November 2020. During Egypt's presidency of the African Union 2019-2020 and its chairmanship to the STC TTIIET Technical Committee in April 2019, many experiences have been gained that place it under the command of the African Union and all African countries. And we emphasize the interest and readiness of Egypt, full cooperation with the new chair of the STC TTIIET to serve our African continent in order to achieve the desired agendas. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the technical experts from African countries, African Union Commission, and all stakeholders who participated in the expert meeting, which was held on 28th and 29th June 2021. I value their efforts to come up with an integrated report that includes recommendations and work programs in the transport, infrastructure, and energy sectors in the coming period. And our ministerial meeting will focus on the adoption of this report. The implementation of these recommendations requires many political and strategic decisions to achieve the goals of the sustainable development for our African continent, which places upon us, the decision makers concerned with those sectors, the need to work to provide political support, coordinate and facilitate the harmonization of regimes, regulations, and standards of infrastructure and services in all countries of the African continent, in addition to the importance of cooperation among us to remove any obstacle that may hinder the implementation of the agreed project or work program. As a conclusion for my word to you, let me emphasize that today we have to double our joint efforts at all levels to deepen cooperation and economic integration and to achieve development and progress. And from this standpoint, we stress the importance of working closely with every African country as well as and institutions under the umbrella of the African Union to ensure the effective and the smooth implementation of the recommendations that will come out of the ministerial session and to fulfill the name we gave to the African Union Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a very successful meeting and constructive decision. Thank you for listening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that address. Excellencies, esteemed delegates, allow me now to invite His Excellency, the Chair of the STC and Minister of Public Works of the Kingdom of Lesotho, Your Excellency.
Outgoing Chair, let me just apologize for Honorable Minister Leboham Manaheng. He's still facing some technical problem, which we hope will be solved quickly. In the meantime, he asked me to just make a few remarks on his behalf, and then he will join you as soon as the technical problem has been resolved. Honorable Ministers of Member States, members of the Bureau of the STC on Transport, Transcontinental and Inter-Regional Infrastructure and Energy, Acting Director, distinguished members of the regional economic communities and partners and delegates. It is my privilege, these are the words of the minister, I'm just reading what he had intended to do. It is my privilege and honor to welcome you to this third ordinary session of the STC. The Kingdom of Lesotho is proud to take the chair from our friendly brothers and sisters of Egypt who have steered this STC before us. Their professional handling of our affairs needs to be applauded. We are humbled to take the chair at this particular time and pledge to continue to work with you for the duration of our term. I have been informed that our experts have worked very hard in the past few days to produce documents and recommendations for our deliberations and adoption. We have in from us several recommendations ranging from the financing of our programs and projects to specific issues around air transport, road transport, and others.